I want to bring somebody out to speak with you who, when I moved here in 1995, they gave me cards with everybody's intro, and most of these people I know so well I don't need them. But when I moved here in 1995, Tim and Willie were the biggest things on radio. I mean, Tim Hattrick is one of the greatest guys in radio. Arizona Broadcasters Hall of Fame. He is just really, and on top of that, since I've gotten to know him, one of the true gentlemen, one of the nicest people I've ever met. And his story of success, and then losing that success, and then coming back now for a second time, and how much more he enjoys his second round is a compelling story. So I hope you will give him a more welcome. Everyone, Tim Hattrick.
All right, here's my story in a tweet. Had it all, lost it all. My comeback seemed impossible until I discovered the secret that changed my life. And that secret was, darn it, I ran out of characters. 140 is your limit. All right, so listen, I'm going to get to the secret. I will tell you about the secret. What was it? Why did I need to learn it? And how did it change my life? But to get to that part, I have to tell you the most amazing part, which was I have an incredible life. I've had one. It's still an incredible life, but I've been through some adversity. I've been through some tough times. In these last few years, I was kind of upside down for a while. But let me tell you, my life started here in Phoenix, Arizona. I was born here at St. Joseph's Hospital, the youngest of 4 kids, and like all babies, I was the most talented and funniest person in my family. But now that's not true. My family would say that was my sister because she was very funny. She actually won a competition that was hosted by Showtime in the early days of Showtime. She was named the funniest person in Arizona, and she went on to compete in for the national title. She didn't win it, but she lost it to who was the funniest person from Louisiana. I didn't think she was as funny as my sister, but she went on to become Ellen DeGeneres. Anyway, that's true. So I wasn't the funniest guy in my family, but I was absolutely undisputed champion of luck. I was the luckiest person in my family. I'm the luckiest person I've ever known. And to see the evidence of that, you have to look no further than my life around me. For instance, for most of my adult life, I have been looked after by my guardian angel and my best friend. Her name is Connie. We call her the Con, and you know what? We have been together through a lot of things. We've had some for better moments. We have had, unfortunately, some for worse moments. Richer, poorer, sickness and health, all of that stuff. But luckily, so far, after 37 years, death has not done us part. So that's good, and I hope it stays that way for a long time because, like I say, we really love each other. We like each other. That's the weirdest part. 37 years later, and we still like each other. And we've always liked each other. In fact, that leads to another amazing proof of how lucky I am, in that when you like each other, this is what happens. We had 4 kids in 4 years. We were living in Tucson. We didn't really know anybody, and we didn't have cable TV. And there you go. And then through junior high, somewhere, the girls knew another girl who came over for the weekend and then stayed through college, so we became a family of 5, and that's all of us. Holly's there on the left side of the picture. So we had 5 teenagers, 4 of them girls, all a year apart, and that was when I learned to drink Jack Daniels. But anyway, look at this. I mean, I got this amazing life, right? And that's good. But my career was unbelievable. I told you, I grew up here in Phoenix. All I wanted to do was grow up and be on the radio, all right? I got to be on the radio in Phoenix. Right out of school at NAU, I ended up on KDKB rock station. It was the #1 station in town. I couldn't believe my fortune. I got to work a couple of years later on the morning show with a legend, an icon, a guy I grew up listening to named Bill Haywood. I was a part of his show. I also ended up working with this guy. Do you recognize him? That's right. Glenn Beck and Tim Hattrick did the Y Morning Zoo together here in Phoenix on a radio station called Y95. It was wild. It was amazing. And when Glenn and I, after a year and a half, decided to part ways, we looked each other in the eye and we shook hands. And we agreed that one of us was going to go on to become God's gift to radio and television. And then Glenn also, I guess, continued on in the business as well. But now, all of that was just the warm-up act because along came Willie. I met Willie, that's right, at a dinner party in Mesa. He and I hit it off and decided we wanted to do a radio show together. So we said, we'll go anywhere in the country that will hire us, and that ended up being Tucson. We started in Tucson together, and we had no idea it was going to last as long as it did, but it did, and it was glorious. 25 years together, the Tim and Willie Show in Tucson, Phoenix, Chicago. We were syndicated to 14 different cities at one point. It was unbelievable. It was the greatest time of just enjoying what we did. We had fun. We made a lot of money. We raised our kids. We lived in nice houses. We went on vacations. I mean, we ended up in the Broadcast Hall of Fame here in Arizona. That just didn't even register on our minds. So thank you. And it was awesome. I had it all until I lost it all. So you're going, what happened, Tim? How did you screw this up, really? The truth is, we were on the top of the mountain. We were working on KNIX. We were on TV every day. People knew us all through town. And sometimes you don't realize how good you've got it. And sometimes you take things for granted. And sometimes you think you can come up with a better plan. And that happened. And we decided that we didn't want to work for a big company anymore. And we didn't want to work for bosses. We didn't want to answer to corporate offices in New York or San Antonio. And I got to admit, we kind of had a little chip on our shoulder and maybe thought a little too much of ourselves. So we left. We left all that behind to start our own company. We were going to work for ourselves. We were going to be our own bosses. And we really believed in ourselves. Now, I believed in it so much that when we launched the Tim and Willie Statewide Radio Network, that I actually paid for all of it myself. I didn't get investors. I didn't do a Kickstarter or a GoFundMe. I didn't even ask Willie for the money. I took all of that money in my savings account and my retirement money. I know there's financial people here who just had a stroke. And I funded the Tim and Willie Radio Network. Now, it didn't flop, right? We were on 5 stations. We had a live stream of our show on audio and video. We actually put together a 1-hour daily TV show version of the Tim and Willie Show that got picked up by one of the local big stations here in town. It was making money. It didn't die because it wasn't successful that way. What happened was we learned a very important lesson and the beginning of kind of eating a little bit of crow. Being the boss sucks. I hated it. It's hard. And I had to do everything. We had just to get to do the show we wanted and have our little radio playtime. We had to do everything. And those of you who are business owners, I tip my hat to you. I learned the hard way that this is a very real lesson in life. And so of all the bosses I worked for, I was the worst boss in my whole career. And we weren't having fun. So in spite of the fact that it was successful and making money, we decided after a time to pull the plug. And in effect, that was the end of the Tim and Willie Show in 2014. At that time, Willie said, hey, look, I love you. I'll be there for you whenever, but if you need to go back and earn your money back. And so I'm going to go play golf and call me if you need me. And he gave me very graciously that admonition. Now, I was sad about the end of Tim and Willie, but I had no problem with that because I thought, hey, I've been on the radio in Phoenix for 30 years. I was on TV. I've name recognition. I've got lots of contacts. I've got sponsors who love us. I will have no problem finding a job on the radio. And here's the thing. I found out that I was wrong. I could not find a job on the radio. I talked to several radio stations. There were 4 jobs after the Tim and Willie Show ended, 4 specific jobs on radio stations. I won't name any of the radio stations, but one of them was at 550 on the AM dial. Anyway, I was convinced I was absolutely perfect for this job, but they weren't, and I couldn't convince them. And every time I didn't get a job that I thought I was perfect for in radio, I thought, something's up here. What's the problem? And when I say we about all of these things, It was really me, because I came to find out later down the road that I was kind of the star of all of my problems. I was in every one of them. Like, it was me. All right, so when I couldn't get a job on the radio, I thought, okay, then I'll just go and work for an advertising agency, do something creative, marketing, PR. Couldn't get a job there. I was in my early 50s, and I had never filled out an application for a job. My whole career, I'd gone from one radio job to the next. I'd never written a resume. That was really hard. All right. At that point, something happened. The biggest thing about that point in my life is my bills did not care if I was happy in my job and satisfied with my career path. And as you can see, at one point, that bank account, which had a crap load of money in it at one time, had 1 penny in it, 1 cent. And that, for some reason, I took a screenshot of that because I go, this matters. I went and I did what a lot of people do. I went and I just started doing any job I could. I went and started looking in the Indeed.com and Career Builder, all those websites. And I drove for Uber. I actually liked that job. It was a little bit like doing a radio show for, one listener at a time in the back seat. Really. I didn't make any money, but I had fun. I worked at Amazon's fulfillment center in Southwest Phoenix, 2 million square feet of nothing but shelves and shelves and shelves of all the crap that Amazon sells. And that was a really hard job. If you've ever been on Amazon and it says, if you order this in the next 40 minutes, you can get it, in an hour. That was that was my job. I had to run and get that stupid iPhone charger that you just had to have, right? And get it on the conveyor belt so they could ship it to you in an hour. I was a UPS delivery man. I really was. I went and I drove one of those big brown trucks up the 101 every day and wore the uniform and everything. And, it was weird because in every instance, these jobs were fascinating to me. They were interesting. I saw something kind of significant about each of these jobs, and it led me to what I mentioned earlier, the secret. In every job, I would get recognized, driving for Uber, at Amazon, UPS, and people would ask, what happened? Why aren't you on the radio? You were Tim of Tim and Willie. You had it all. Is it embarrassing? Was it humiliating? And you know what? It wasn't. I don't know why, but it wasn't humiliating. It was fascinating. And I learned something in each of these jobs that I'd lost sight of. I learned what it was like to get up every day and get in traffic. I'd never driven in traffic. I was on the radio, when the traffic was going on. I watched how hard it was to earn even not enough money to pay your bills. I struggle with what are we going to do this month, because where's the money going to come from? And it was a real unbelievable lesson. One morning, racing to get to Amazon, I was stuck in traffic, and I realized something. I was listening to the radio, and I was panicked because I wasn't going to make it in time, and it hit me. I was on the other end of what I'd been doing my whole career. I was in the car, stuck in traffic, listening to the radio, realized how important what I did was. Not important, but how special it was, that bond between the listeners. And it hit me like, oh my gosh, this is what I needed. I actually needed to be humbled. And so the secret that I had to learn after all those years of being on the top of the mountain was humility. It's not something that you would prescribe for yourself. You wouldn't say, my life is tough. You know what I need? I need to be humbled. No, you wouldn't do that. But I look back, I'm so grateful for that moment, for those stories and those lessons. And I thought, gosh, I'm so sad. I've got good stories. I met all these amazing people and did these cool things. I wish I had a place to talk about this. Well, I had given up at that point that I was ever going to be back on the radio. But while I was training for UPS, I got a call from KNIX. They said, would you come down to the station and talk about an idea we have? I actually went in my UPS uniform. That's not me, but I didn't have a picture of me, so I just used that. And they talked to me in 2017 about joining the morning show with Tim, Ben, and Brooke every morning on KNIX. So I just want to say, I had to learn that lesson that way, and I'm so grateful for it. And if you're struggling, if you're out of work, if you're facing how to pay the bills and you're upside down in life, you know what? Don't forget to be humble, to be kind, and to be generous. It has amazing powers that you can't believe. Thanks very much. Enjoy the night.